Music is for absolutely everybody because you can feel music as well as hear music. You don't have to see music. Music can be enjoyed by thousands and thousands of people simultaneously and also means something so individual to one person. Ruskin Mill is basically a series of workshops set in beautiful farmland where young people work with their tutors in a stunning environment. Our young people aren't in square boxes with strip lighting. They are in effectively hand-built green woodwork workshops. And in those workshops, our young people explore that craft on multiple layers, but they also learn their literacy, their numeracy, their science, their biology, their chemistry. All of those learning topics are embedded within whichever craft or topic they're using.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the India Autism Center podcast. This is a space where we amplify voices of awareness, innovation, and inclusive thinking that shape the world of autism and accessibility. I'm your host, Sakhi Singhi, and today we're exploring an extremely powerful topic. This is a question that sits at the intersection of arts, science, and humanity. How can music become a powerful therapeutic ally for autistic and neurodivergent individuals? And joining us in this conversation, we have someone who brings a rare blend of experience. We have with us Dr. Keith Griffiths, Academic Director at the Ruskin Mill Center for Practice. Dr. Griffiths, thank you so much for being here at this podcast, and it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It is an absolute delight and joy to be here and to talk to you and explore that wonderful topic.
Great. So I'm going to dive right in.
Please do.
My first question to you is, you spent years working at the intersection of education therapy and music. To begin, when we talk about music and autism, what comes to your mind first?
Good question. I think what comes to my mind is that every individual has a music that speaks to them. Mm-hmm. And it's normally found very quickly. And what music can give to anybody, whether you're neurodiverse or neurotypical, for want of a better term, music allows you an access to a different world. And music allows you to explore rhythms and textures and words and emotions in a safe space. My personal view is that if one can explore music with other people, that's the real joy.
There was this thing that I was discussing with you, which is a lot of us have been conditioned to either believe that we're not musically inclined. This is also something that I grew up with. I tried several instruments. It never really worked for me.
Yeah.
I was discussing how I started playing the keyboard.
Yes.
And the minute that the second hand was introduced, it was like, yeah, this is not made for me. And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is, what are your thoughts on the fact that maybe music is only meant for a certain type of people, maybe people who have the aptitude for it? Do you believe that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Music is for absolutely everybody, with every form of ability, because you can feel music as well as hear music. You don't have to see music. So music can be there for everybody with every form of ability and less able. It can be for everybody. It can be for the mass and it can be for the micro. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Music can be enjoyed by thousands and thousands of people simultaneously and also means something so individual to one person.
Yeah.
There's many examples of professional musicians who are both neurodiverse and also have disability. Evelyn Glennie is a perfect example. Professor Dame Evelyn Glennie, who's an international percussionist, who has concerts all around the world, is unbelievably famous within the classical music world and folk music world, and effectively feels the rhythm through bare feet on the ground, on wooden stages. And that's how she interacts, both as a soloist and with all of the orchestras and musicians. And so, yeah, certain music for certain people can be done at any point. I think music is a wonderful topic and skill that can be enjoyed by anybody. There's no doubt that the alleged 10,000 hours of practice to become a professional musician, just FYI, I think it's much more than 10,000 hours, is true. You do need that. You need to be able to practice. You do need to be able to explore deeply the music and the content and the technique. But that's not for everybody. That's just for those that wish to go on professionally.
Okay.
We heard two beautiful musicians last night who were breathtaking. I mean, the virtuosity of their playing was world class. But I would equally enjoy listening to a couple of musicians who love the music and play maybe not so brilliantly, but they'll have something different to say. And so I do think you have to be able to explore music openly and not just stay within a fixed area like, I don't know, Mozart symphonies or so on and so forth.
That makes sense. This actually makes me think about the learning environment, right? In India, the learning environment is extremely conventional.
Okay.
And which is exactly why I was conditioned to think that I'm probably not musically inclined. And over the last couple of days, having you here at the India Autism Center has been such a delight for us to know about the learning environment that exists in Ruskin Mill. I'd love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about the learning environment at Ruskin Mill, as well as how music is used as a therapeutic medium.
Yeah, wonderful. I'd love to. Thank you, first of all. Yeah, Ruskin Mill is a very special place.
Yes.
And I know that you've also got Angus Gordon, OBE, after me, and he will be able to discuss the beauty of Ruskin Mill. However, as you've asked me, I will also answer the question. So all our Ruskin Mill sites are set in farmland, biodynamic farmland. So they already have a openness, but also a holding structure for our young people and staff to explore ecology, as well as, for example, the rhythms of the seasons.
Okay.
And we don't have large office buildings like this because that's not in sympathy with the land that we work with. So we have generally reconditioned buildings of, for example, farmhouses or mills or even factories that we repurpose and redesign for our young people and staff that are sympathetically set within the farmland. A lot of our classes, I should say, or areas are workshop designed rather than classroom designed. So our young people aren't in square boxes with strip lighting.
Correct.
They are in effectively hand-built green woodwork workshops or clay workshops or metal workshops or glass factory workshops where there's a diverse series of textures, colors, sounds that are appropriate to the skill and craft being explored. And in those workshops, our young people explore that craft on multiple layers, but they also learn their literacy, their numeracy, their science, their biology, their chemistry, their geometry. All of those learning topics are embedded within whichever craft or topic they're using. Music, for example, we teach both cultural topics like festivals, musical culture, culture consciousness. We also teach or can teach maths through that, color through that, literacy through songs and language. So, Ruskin Mill is basically a series of workshops set in beautiful farmland, where young people work with their tutors in a stunning environment.
I am so intrigued by the fact that even all of the members, including the staff at Ruskin Mill, is included in craft.
Yes.
I just saw a picture of the wonderful chair that you made.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the philosophy behind even having every single member, not just the students, but every single member that is a part of the Ruskin Mill involved in craft?
So we have a method called Practical Skills Therapeutic Education, PSTE. That's the method of the trust. And our young people are asked and invited to explore that method as the curriculum. And in that curriculum, the majority of learning, as I've said in my previous question, is craft or practical experience-based. We don't sit behind desks. It's an experiential curriculum. And that's not normal. It's not usual.
Correct.
And so where you have staff, and we have a lot of staff who may come from a mainstream provision or care or education, you can't be an authentic worker in a new method or a method that is slightly different to the average without them experiencing it. And as we ask our students to experience something new, we ask all staff to experience the method, to step into the shoes of the young people coming into the trust, and they become, and effectively they see what our students have to see by doing the crafts in the way that we do them. So from day one, all the way through to however long you're with us, some people have been with us 30 years, we have a series of days. I think there's about 12 to 13 days a year where all staff are invited to participate in the method of the trust, which is effectively craft-based, experientially based. So we have across all the provisions, we close down to delivery to young people, and we deliver to the staff for them to truly embed what the method means for them as a transformative process.
And what are the so you joined RMT about a decade ago. What was
7 years ago, yeah.
What was your experience like in this experiential learning, just for my...
Yeah, very good question. It was fantastic. It was confusing. It was overwhelming in a very good way. Slightly overwhelming in a intellectual way, because I came intellectually to it, and actually I needed to put that aside and experience it. I'm quite a reflective person, so I was able to do that separation for the first few days and just relinquish myself to the process of enjoying something very, very new. And I think I truly did understand the concept of stepping into the students' shoes.
Yeah.
So that's where I started from, was, okay, this is what the method is. Let's see myself as a student. What do they experience? How do they experience? That was the entry for me. As a senior member of staff, I had 6-month induction. And so part of that is for me to visit every site and to effectively explore certainly the main crafts that we offer, the signature crafts we call them, in each of the sites. So I have done green woodwork, clay, felting, glasswork, jewelry, metalwork, spoon forging, etc. As the head of training and academic director, that's vital. I have to know what we're asking our tutors to train our staff in, so that our staff are able to help and guide our students through that learning journey. It's essential for every member of staff to experience that. And we've pedagogically set that up for everybody to start that from day one through. What is probably, I'm going to use the unique word, unique, is that we ask every member of staff to do it. So regardless of what they do, whether they're a worker in the cafe to the CEO, everybody must engage in the method throughout the year at some point or other, whether they be on PSD Fridays or Mondays, of which there are about 2, 4, 6 or 8, or whether that's through the week-long training week we have at the very beginning of each year. Every member of staff must attend.
Keith, you were mentioning about internal trainings that you do at Ruskin Mill, and you said something that just blew our minds off, which was about 19,000 hours of training was conducted last year. We always knew internal training was important, but to the extent that you all have absolutely nailed it at Ruskin Mill Trust is just unbelievable. If you can shine some light on the journey of how internal training has maybe evolved since your time at Ruskin Mill, or what exactly the intention really is of internal training that you guide your staff with, it would be great.
So training or an educational offer is not simply about the transmission of knowledge or a transmission of skill. It is a transmission of, for us anyway at Ruskin Mill, our vision, our values, as well as the method, as well as skill development, knowledge development. It is about self-development, ultimately. The principle relies on us wanting to be able to offer our beneficiaries, our young people who come and live and work in our trust, they have to have the best care, the best education, the best wraparound support. And that comes with, first of all, interviewing the right people and employing the right people, but also ensuring that they are equally as cared for, and ensuring that their knowledge, skill, and capacities are, 1, challenged, and 2, improved and increased, so that that cycle comes back into the care and attention we are able to offer our beneficiaries. That's the purpose of the training. It's simply not about upskilling a person to do a task. It's about how they're able to offer themselves in a better way for our young people who we truly work for.
I'm going to circle back to music again.
Yes.
You are a conductor by profession. And conductors use gesture, rhythm, and lots of nonverbal cues, right?
Yes.
All of which really overlap with how autistic individuals communicate. Could you walk us through maybe gesture vocabulary that can support sensory, emotional, or learning regulation?
Well, that's a very big question.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I can, but I'll try. You're quite right. And I love the fact you use gesture vocabulary as a term. It's the correct term. It's great. As a conductor, you only really communicate through gesture. Gesture and time are your friends. And the majority of communication is gestural and tonal.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, 57% of my gesture here, even in a podcast, is physical.
Right.
My hands are moving, I'm forward and back, my face is moving, my head is moving. The other 30 odd, 40% is the way in which I'm speaking with you and our guests out there listening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speeding up, I'm slowing down, I'm softening, I'm getting a bit louder every now and again. So the tone and the intention of my language is then the next level of communication. And really, what I say is just the little pinnacle. It's only less than 10% of importance compared to the other body of the triangle. And in conducting, that's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely speak in a rehearsal. It's all gesture with the baton, my hands, my face. I will throw a few words out every now and again. But generally, it is the gesture vocabulary that speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Our students, our young people with ASD and other learning abilities, they have multiple ways of communicating.
Right.
Some people will actually prefer the language, but a lot of our students do communicate and understand, perceive communication with a visual cue of body and tone.
Yeah.
So it's very useful.
Yeah. There was this whole thing that I learned about Ruskin Mill over this week, which was role modeling. There is no instructor telling the student to throw some clay on the wheel. There is an instructor that is throwing the clay on the wheel, and should the student want to do it, it is up to them. Can you talk a little more about the role modeling, and would that be something around the gesture vocabulary? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a very good question too. Yeah, we work with guided choice.
Yeah.
So our students aren't made to do anything. It is that we ask them to come to the craft. We invite them to it. And if they're not wanting to work on what we think is the right thing at the time, they can choose whatever. It's about entering the space that they're in. We call it meeting the student where they are.
Yeah.
And inviting them to come with us to explore whatever the craft is and the experience. I'm not a craft teacher, so I'm not an expert in this specifically. But I know that my colleague Matt Briggs is doing some fantastic research for his doctorate in how role modeling and the non-verbal aspects of teaching a craft are pedagogically sound and actually much more potent actually in the learning process and the what shall I call it, the transferable skills element. So yes, if a tutor is demonstrating, the student watching and so on and so forth, then they will the tutor will invite the student to start to participate, and there will be a handover of the student being able to then start to do that craft, and the staff member will help guide, but mostly non-verbally. And because your eyes, the concept of focus, grasp and step happens here, so both the tutor and the student are in the same visual direction. The haptics are working together. And so, yes,
it is
the physical teaching of craft can also then be extrapolated into pedagogical imperatives.
That's helpful. If you have a final message for our listeners, this could be pretty much anything.
Everybody deserves a very good education. Education is so vitally important to us as the human condition. And everybody deserves as best education they possibly get. no matter what barriers that we have, whether it be location, money, physical barriers, so on and so forth. And so I would say, get the best education you possibly can. Be courageous.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask educationalists to be imaginative,
Mm-hmm.
even though that's really tricky.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have some wonderful colleagues and friends who are wonderful educationalists, but governance in education is tricky. It's hard. It's demanding. And those demands are sometimes not about education. And so I would call for governments to let education institutions really do what they should do, which is spend most of their time educating their charges, because that's what they're great at. That's what they do the very best job for. That's what they go into the profession for. And so I suppose my last comment here is education is precious.
Mm-hmm.
And both sides, both the person wanting to be educated and those who are educators, need to be able to come together and enjoy that very special gift of education.
Are there any free resources that the listeners can have access to, which is by the Ruskin Mill Trust? I'd be happy to post it in the description.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we can put some links in.
Yes.
That would be
Great.
wonderful, of course.
I know we have very limited time with you today, Dr. Griffiths, so thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was really, really helpful. And with all the resources that Dr. Griffiths will very generously share the links with us, and we'll add it to the description. If you think you've really enjoyed this conversation today, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. It really helps us go a really long way. If you've had any conversations for Dr. Griffiths, do leave it in the comments, and we'll try our best to get you answers from him. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and consider watching any of the videos that are popping up in your screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.